Hello once again from the land down under. For those of you just tuning in, I am the one and only Impulse Kid 86, and welcome to my review for Aliens vs Predator on the Xbox 360. Coming from the same crew behind the 1994 AVP game on the short-lived Atari Jaguar, as well as the better-known PC game from 1999, Rebellion Development's latest offering has been surrounded by controversy since it was initially banned from Australian shores. You see, much like Left 4 Dead 2 before it, the early build of AVP was deemed much too violent, once again highlighting the country's need of an R18 rating for video games. That all changed, however, when publisher Sega successfully appealed for the game to be released completely uncut with a rating of MA15+, convincing the Australian Classification Review Board that the violence depicted within the game was justified within its context and that the more disgusting aspects were optionally generated. Despite the rather baffling decision that it now seems to be a-okay to turn human heads into trophies, I can honestly say that this is a huge step up from the bothersome censoring scene in our release of Left 4 Dead 2, and the fact that Rebellion fought to keep the blood and guts intact in a sort of give out the full package or nothing at all kind of deal is clearly their way of saying a big fat fuck you to censorship. The game's single-player campaign is broken up into 3 chapters, each of which intertwine to form a single narrative and allow you to take control of a colonial marine as well as one of the 2 titular beasts, which I'll explain in a bit more detail in just a moment. In addition, the survival mode pits you against waves of progressively stronger aliens, and the online multiplayer includes the typical deathmatch modes as well as a few options that reference the films that the 2 titular attractions spawned from. Infestation is sure to strike a chord as a single player controlled alien butts heads with the marines controlled by the others, slowly bringing back each marine it kills as an alien. The Predator hunt plays out by similarly turning players against each other, since the only way to score points is to play as the Predator, and the only way to control the Predator is to steal that control from each of the other players. Although I can imagine that a lot of sour faces will be caused by these modes, there's also a lot of fun to be had as well, even if most of the stages have to be downloaded. I found that stepping into the shoes of a rookie Space Marine was easily the game's most exciting portion. With a limited light source accompanied by the sound of the radar-like motion tracker ticking away like a beating heart, the first couple of stages really managed to nail not only the sheer sense of arse-cheek-clenching terror that comes with facing down a horde of xenomorphs as they pounce out of the darkness when you least expect it, but also the immense rush of exhilaration that washes over you as you pump the black-skinned beasties full of bullet holes using the right and left trigger buttons to activate the primary and secondary ammunition. This campaign is also notable for featuring the most information on the game's backstory, which comes to light as you pile up a nice collection of audio diaries, a feature similar to the BioShock games.
Hypersleep cannot come quickly enough. So desperate am I to jump the weeks of travel between here and what awaits us on Freya's Prospect. This is an amazing opportunity.
The Alien campaign puts you in command of a xenomorph that's been bred and raised in captivity, and speaking as a fan of the Alien movies, it pains me to say that some of the big issues I have about the game come from this particular campaign. While it is enjoyable to skulk around and harvest humans to add to your collective as you spread the aliens' particular brand of chaos, this campaign's leaning towards stealth and melee combat, with weak and strong attacks respectively utilised by way of the right and left bumper buttons, gives way to a certain degree of clumsiness that, from the game's first-person perspective, can and often will leave players quite disoriented and vulnerable to enemy fire as they scale the walls and ceilings by holding the right trigger once the prompts appear. Another hurtful factor is the fact that the storytelling aspect takes a serious dip down, and the feeling of just trying to get from point A to point B is much more prevalent here than in the other campaigns. But in the interest of fairness, it seems that even the Alien movies, specifically the 3rd and 4th ones, have had their share of hiccups in regards to tacking a decent narrative onto a creature that can be aptly summed up as an oversized insect. Of course, it's only fitting that the Predator campaign sits somewhere on the middle ground, giving players the best of both worlds by combining the gunplay of the Marines with the Xenomorph's fisticuffs, as you leap to and from the safety of higher ground by holding the left trigger and pressing A when prompted. The storyline here packs a little more punch when compared to the Alien campaign and sends you on a quest to reacquire stolen Predator technology as you hunt the Xenomorphs down one by one. Fans of the otherworldly hunter will be happy to know that the character's signature cloaking device, activated by pressing the Y button, comes into play rather heavily here, and although it's just plain awesome to launch a surprise attack on the gun-toting Marines to score a trophy, which momentarily leaves you vulnerable, it does little in the way of handling the aliens, since they aren't fooled quite so easily. Even so, that's nothing a good spear to the head or charged plasma blast won't fix. Speaking of the plasma caster, charging up the blasts should be done sparingly, since you'll burn through your energy quite quickly otherwise. Don't worry, you can recharge the weapon by hacking into one of the many designated energy sources scattered throughout the stages. Although there's a relative learning curve for each of the three species, the controls are mapped out much like one would expect for a first-person shooter. Aside from the functions I've already mentioned, you can cycle through the Colonial Marines' weapons using the directional pad, as well as press the left bumper to throw a flare, and press the right bumper to knock back enemies for a clear shot. Pressing the A button allows your chosen character to jump, while the B button will activate the Colonial Marines' flashlight, as well as allow the Predator's mask to toggle between thermovision or the alien spotting xenovision, as I've come to call it. Holding the X button will allow you to interact with objects and perform kill moves with the alien and Predator, while the effects of simply pressing it vary between characters, causing the Colonial Marine to reload his ammo and allowing the Predator to distract enemy Marines by simulating human voices and drawing them away from their cohorts for easy pickings. Finally, holding the Y button will allow the Predator and Colonial Marine to heal, while simply pressing it will cause the alien to hiss and lure in its prey. Graphically, the game is naturally nice to look at, and despite suffering from some slightly muddy environmental textures, it does a respectable job of capturing the intricacies of the AVP franchise, presenting both the alien and Predator, as well as the gory kills they produce, in awesome detail. The soundtrack also does a splendid job of engrossing the player in the game's atmosphere, with the musical pieces perfectly evocative of both of the titular characters. Each of the sound effects are also spot on, from the barrage of ammo from the M41A2 pulse rifle to the creepy ticking of the motion tracker, which is sure to wrangle more than a few nerves with some players. The voice acting on show is also remarkably solid, with special mention going to Lance Henriksen of the Alien films, who plays the role of the mysterious antagonist Carl Bishop Wayland.
I must admit I'm surprised to see you here. Our hunter friends must be losing their edge. Or perhaps luck has been on your side. My name is Carl Bishop Whalen, and this is my facility. All you have to do is leave, and I give you my word you will not be pursued. At least, not by any of my personnel.
If you're a long-time fan of both the titular franchises, or have simply seen the recent Alien vs Predator films, suffice it to say that you'll have an enjoyable time wading your way through the 10 to 15 hours that the single-player experience will provide, especially if you hated the cinematic crossovers. Although it's worth noting that another big problem to be found in this game is repetition, and although that complaint can be saddled to pretty much any game out there, I say this simply in the sense that the game forces you to replay the same stages with each of the three characters. To its credit, however, the narrative at least allows you to approach things from a different perspective, bringing a sense of individuality to each playthrough as you slowly piece the grander plot together. In the long run, the game is well worth a look, and I sincerely hope that this leads to the creation of an R18 rating here in Australia, so that problems like the ones that besieged this game and Left 4 Dead 2 don't surface ever again.